Perfect. So we're here. Today's class, I want to just show you a little bit about what all the cool patterns that people use when they code websites. The idea is that you feel confident when you have to construct uh, a web that the approach that you're following is the one that everybody's using. So currently, I always vouch for people to try to make websites without any library, but there's many libraries out there that are very useful. So I wanted to show you that it's not so complex to work in those environments. So the first thing we can do is I was talking yesterday about how important it is to use other languages, not only JavaScript, like TypeScript, when you make applications. Because, well, if you search for a job currently, there's a lot of offers of people who know TypeScript because companies prefer TypeScript than JavaScript. So I think it would be nice to show you what's TypeScript in real life. So first of all, you have to install the compiler. So I install it here with this line TypeScript, and the npm will download it and install it globally. So you don't have to do anything. I already did that, so it's already installed. And then as an example, in this folder, I have this test TS. You can see it's not a JavaScript, it's a TS, it's a TypeScript. And because it's a TypeScript, by the way, because the file is TS, you will see that the environment I'm using already detects that this is a TypeScript file. So it's always nice that the VS Code already will parse if I do something that is wrong. He will let me know. And the thing is that when you type some code in TypeScript, you will see that it looks very similar to JavaScript. So here we have a variable, but the only difference is that there's types, as you can see here. You don't have to. I mean, I can do this, and this is still a valid TypeScript file. Obviously, if I open this file on the browser, I will be able to see it. I don't have any HTTP server running, so let's make an index and I can open it. So because otherwise I cannot open it. So index.html, and here we are going to include the file. Okay. Yes, in this case it's going to be test. So I could include the, sorry, I had to put this, I think. Okay, I could include the TypeScript file now, because if you think about it, this TypeScript file is just regular JavaScript. So let's try to see if it works. So I'm going to make an HTTP server here, launch it, and now it's listening on 8080. So I can open it. It suggests me to open it here. And if I open it, well, there's nothing much to see here. But if I open the console, I'm going to put the console on the right here. So, okay. So it's complaining because this file is a TS and he doesn't know how to react to this file because he doesn't know this type. My server is not telling him that this is a JavaScript file because it's a TS and the server doesn't know if this is JavaScript. And when you include a script, if you don't specify the type, he will try to guess it, and that's wrong. So in this case, obviously, if you make a script, you always have to specify the type. Type equals to, I don't remember now the type, 1 second. So when you put a script, it's usually good to put something like the type of the script, which is, 1 second, I never remember. It's type or something like that. 1 second. Oh my gosh. All the examples I'm checking, they don't put the type. Application JSON. No, application JavaScript, I think. Yeah, I think this is the one. So you say something like this, application JavaScript. Okay. So by default, if this was a JavaScript, it would work, but because it's not a JavaScript, it's complaining. So if I reload again, it's not complaining now. And the reason why he doesn't complain is because we enforced it that this file was a JavaScript. And because we enforce it that this is a JavaScript, he said, okay, we accept it. And you go here, well, this is not doing anything at all. That's weird. Anyway, why is not putting the console log on the console when you launch the application? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Ah, damn it. I forgot to put here this. So, reload. Still, it's not enforcing. But anyway, it was a hack to prove you that this, you can put I'm going to put JavaScript, and obviously if we do this, now it works because this is JavaScript. It doesn't find the test.js. Oh, it's true because it's got a test. Nah, anyway, forget about it. I want to show you something, but it's complaining too much, so let's go to the point. The idea is that we have this file, which is a TypeScript file, and we can see that here is a TypeScript. So it would be nice to convert it to a new file. So to convert it, I'm going to create a new console here. And I have this compiler here, which is called TSC. TSC stands for TypeScript Compiler. Presenter, you can see there's a compiler here. So what I'm going to say, hey, I want to compile this test.ts, which is a TypeScript file. And if I press enter, it will compile it, and the proof that it compiled it is now there is a JavaScript file, which we didn't have before. If you check the JavaScript file, you will see that it's almost exactly the same. So you can see it's more or less exactly the same, because, well, this code we had here was already almost JavaScript. The only thing it has done currently, it has removed the types, because it didn't make any sense in JavaScript to have types, and that's it. So here's a test. If we go and reload it, we'll see welcome to Git for Kicks. Okay, so cool, it works. We have a compiler, but then the question is, why we need to have a compiler if it's almost the same? Well, because there are some differences. Imagine that you have a function, and this function says it's a function that adds two numbers, a and b, and returns, obviously, is going to return a plus b. Okay, so this is a generic function. First thing you will see is that the compiler is already telling me, the Visual Studio Code is telling me, hey, you didn't specify the type for this variable, so by default, if you don't specify any type, it's going to be any. Any is not a bad type. The problem is that I cannot guess things about it. So I can call this function, like I can do console log at 5 and 10, and obviously this will work. So if I compile this file now, and open it on the browser, it says 15. Okay, nothing fancy here. But the thing is that I could also by mistake put here something that's wrong, like for instance, a string. And if you do that, still I can save it and I can compile the file. And obviously it's not going to do anything special, but if I reload now, you will see that it tries to put foo plus 10, which is not an error because JavaScript allows to put a string. You have a string, you can add a number, and it will just convert the number to string and attach it. But if you're in production, this could be a problem. So it would be nice that you detect that that's wrong. So I'm going to type here and say, no, this is a number, this is a number, okay? If I save now and try to compile, let's see if it compiles or not. So I get an error, okay? I get an error that tells me, hey, wait, you are passing here a string, but this cannot be a string, it has to be a number. So then you can say, oh, okay. So that's nice because before you go to production, the system is already detecting errors for you. It's something that JavaScript cannot do unless you call a function and the function has some sort of control inside. Because you could do it manually. I can have see something like in JavaScript that say if a constructor is different to number, you can do these kind of things to detect errors in your code, but this way is already detected before you execute the function. So if you make like 20 functions and one of them has errors, then TypeScript will detect it. Also in TypeScript, for instance, even if I do it right, I put here 10, for instance, okay, and then I want to store here the result, like bar result equal this, something like this. Maybe there's an error now, I'm not sure, let me see. Yeah, it's an error. It's an error because it says that this his things. Sorry, I not result. Yeah, I was using a variable that doesn't exist. Yes, compile again. Okay, it didn't give any error, but yes, okay, because this function can also store number. Log supports strings and numbers, and then it's okay. But I was expecting that it was going to tell me that this result, I didn't specify any type, but by default he will try to guess the type from the function. And here this function is not telling the type, but because these are two numbers, maybe he knows that adding two numbers returns a number. I'm going to enforce that this returns a number. By putting this type here, it means that this function will return a type of this one. Okay, I don't know if this will bring an error or not. I don't think it will bring an error. Nah. Okay, because console log supports this. But by default, now this function is a number. So if I put this is a string, like this, and I compile it, maybe it doesn't work, maybe, yeah. It says, sorry, you are trying to add a variable that's type of string, and you're going to type assign a number. So it will be nice because then you have to remember to convert your number to string. Okay, so if I do this, you will see it works now. Okay, so that's one of the main topics when you work in TypeScript, that every single time you modify anything, the system will detect if there's any errors. By the way, it's very flexible. Like for instance, you can say that this function can return, like before, remember I could call this function and pass a number, but maybe I want to use this function to add to strings, something like this, like foo and fa, something like this. So if you want to have this like a function that supports strings and numbers, you can have that. You can put here, this supports a string, and this supports a string, and this may return a string or a number. So when you put it like this, means that this variable could be this type or this type. Okay, so it's flexible. I mean, you're not losing flexibility. But the nice thing is that you will have the control over the errors in all your code, which is always very powerful. Other interesting features is that you can define interfaces. Like for instance, imagine I have a function that receives a user. Okay, so it doesn't do anything. Like I don't know, I have here something like users, like we usually have in our engine. And when you add a user, you expect to do something like users push user. Okay, so we can add a user to our system. So then imagine I have my user, okay, name Javi, and I want to add it to my system. So I have add user. Okay, so here, because I don't type anything, its system doesn't know what to do. But I cannot type because this isn't a regular object. This is not some special class, which I could do. I could create a class of type user, but for now, if you want to use objects, there's always the possibility to say there is an interface, call it, I don't know, user, and this interface, you need to have a name, which is a string. Okay, so by doing this interface, you're saying that if somebody says the type is user, that means that it has to have a variable name. So I can go here and say this user is of type user. Okay, and just by doing so, that the system will understand that this is a type user. So when I call the function and I start here, I just can say here that this is an array of users, like when you want to say this is an array. And the nice thing is I can call user, but if I by error I call something like 10, here you can see if I compile this, it allows me to compile because I forgot to say that this has to be user, sorry. So now if I go here, compile again, yeah, it says an error because this 10 is doesn't follow the user. Okay, but even though if by mistake I say that users should have an age, which is a number, okay, and I forgot to set up the age here, you can see that already the Visual Studio Code is telling me there's an error, and say, hey, you're passing an object here, but the object is missing age. So if I go here and type test, as we'll see the error that says, hey, age is declared here, but you're not using it, like saying this variable is not defining the age. So you say, oh, yes, right, I forgot to put that the age, whatever. Okay, so now by doing so, the system will be happy because, okay, you put all the variables. So it's nice that you can not only type for regular types, but you can also like say this object must have some properties. It may happen that you want to specify the name in all the users, but the age is optional. You don't want the age, okay? So maybe I want this to work. Like it could have an age, but maybe it doesn't have it. So that's nice because there's an option to do that. Like you see, if I compile now, there's going to be an error because it says that I forgot to put the age on this object. But, and this is the cool thing, I can put here a question mark. And if you put a question mark now, when you compile again, it will say, okay, question mark means this variable could be or could be not. So it's up to the developer. So it's nice. And the also nice thing is that if I, by mistake, I put here edad equals 10, okay, the compilers are going to tell me, wait, this field edad, there's no edad in this interface. So it will detect the editor and it will detect also the compiler. Keep in mind that because TypeScript is very typed, it's highly typed, not only is nice that I can detect a lot of errors on the compiler, I can also detect them on the Visual Studio Code, because Visual Studio Code is already running a compiler, not exactly a compiler, but it's already running an application that tries to compile the code to detect errors. Here, for instance, it's telling me, hey, duplicate function implementation. So duplicate function implementation, there's two adds here, what? Okay, I don't understand this error. He thinks this function already exists somewhere. Function add void. Okay, I don't know what it means. Anyway, I forgot to put here that it's a void version. Maybe there's a function on the system called add. Like I don't know. I'm going to put add user to be sure that I'm not doing anything strange. yeah, there was a function called add somewhere on the whole system. So as you can see, very powerful language, very easy to use. Maybe somebody will say, oh, but this is very annoying. I have to compile every time I modify the code. But you don't have to, because there are already development environments that npm that will compile your files every time they are modified automatically. If you use Webpack, I think Webpack has a feature to do that. And what I have done here for TypeScript, you can do it for many other languages like Dart, CoffeeScript, and it's more or less the same. Okay, and even there are even now languages that compile to WebAssembly, like Action. No, sorry, assembly script. This is very similar, but the output, instead of being a JavaScript, it's a WebAssembly, which also can be executed inside the browser, a little bit more complex, but the possibility is there. So anyway, you can see, if you are interested about different languages, I would recommend you to try TypeScript for a while, get all the nice things and nice features that TypeScript has, because as I said, it's when you make big code repositories, it's very it's very easy that you're going to forget some fields, you're going to forget some variables, and using this is going to always to cover you. Okay. Another cool thing that I didn't put here is that you can import things from TypeScript, and some of the compilers. I don't know if I'm going to make a test. I don't know if it will work, but my lib, for instance, just to show you, imagine I have this library here, and this library is going to export I don't know, an object, call it export foo, which is equal to, I don't know, name Javi. Okay, imagine this library. It doesn't make much sense. Okay, I'm going to do like this and export. Yes, sorry, export foo. Okay, so this library doesn't do much, but it exports this object called foo, and it has something inside. So imagine I want to include this library from my code here, so I can go here and say, hey, I want to import foo from my lib. Okay, sorry, I have to put it like this. So in this library, you will find something called foo, and I want that, and I can console log foo. Okay, so this, if I compile the file now, obviously going to compile, there's not much error. If I list, you will see that it has already compiled both files, so it's nice. I only said compile test ts, but he detected that there's another file used by this file, so he went to that file and I also compiled it. So that's nice, that it means that it can understand that what you're trying to do. And obviously if I run this now, obviously it's going to work, because export is not defined. 1 second, export, what? Okay, this is interesting. I didn't show you what the code was generated. Let me show you the code. If I go here, this is the code that has been generated by the compiler. As you can see, some parts are more or less the same. It removes the types, blah, blah, blah. But also you start seeing strange things like this object defined property exports, blah, blah, blah. And the reason why he's trying to do this is because he is probably trying to detect if this that maybe the browser doesn't support some features, and adding this, it will help to support these features. Anyway, it's not working because I didn't say this is a module, so I guess I have to say this type. No, sorry, type module, I think. So let's see if this works now. Nope. But anyway, I don't know why it's not working now, but I guess I'm forgetting to add something to say that I want to use modules or something like that, and probably it's not catching that thing currently. So this line is giving an error. But anyway, so as I said, it's probably just something very silly that here I have to specify that this JavaScript has to be some sort of kind, or maybe I have to make a package and saying something inside here. I'm not sure now, but just an example of how to use TypeScript. Cool. So I'm going to remove all of this and start a new project here. Let's call it code, to show you other things that you may want to use. I'm going to clean up this a little bit with an HTML and obviously a body. Okay, so here maybe a div. So I call it ID main. Okay. So at least we have some basic structure for application, and as always, I like to put some header. So we start the application with something we can see. Cool. So I reload. We have the hello here, and we have our application. Cool. Okay. So it's complaining now. Yes, because I killed a test, it's going to be called code now. Okay. And now from code, I can do whatever I want to. So the next thing I want to show you is what we were talking the other day, like the possibility that you can construct your own elements from JavaScript, and then it will be helpful when you want to construct more complex applications, because you can construct things that are more encapsulated using the MVC pattern. So first I'm going to do it manually, and then if I have some time, I will show you how to do it with using something like Angular or Vue or one of the libraries. So the idea here is that when you make an application, it's very likely that you're going to have elements that appear in your DOM. Like for instance, when we did the chat, we had messages. So imagine that I want to make the chat. Maybe I will I will want to have a class for a message. So let me show you 1 second. I need to search for the code. Yeah. So imagine I want to have a class for messages. So chat message. Okay, and it's going to be an HTML element, and it's going to have maybe 2 variables. So let's have something like type, content. Okay, so it has username, and this is going to be, well, we will fill that later. So every chat message is going to have a username. Okay, so how to define var username? I think no. Anyway, I'm going to put it here. This is going to have a username. By default, it's going to be unknown, and it's going to have a content, which is going to be whatever, my text. Okay, for now, just forget about this. We're going to use it for now. And so here, and I don't want anything when you click it. And they always say that if you're going to add any behavior that you want to happen when this element gets added to the DOM, I'm going to put it here. So when you add this element to the DOM, I want to create 2 elements inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that the inner HTML, indeed I can do it here, the inner HTML of this element, okay, is going to be, there's going to be like, I don't know, a span class username. Then we finish the span and we create a new span class content, and then we close the span. Okay, so what I have done, as you can see, is that when you create this chat message, is going to create 2 elements inside. Okay, this inner. And now when you connect it, if you want to do anything special, maybe I'm going to say here that this username element is going to be this query selector username. I'm going to just catch these 2 elements, so it's easy for me to find them if I need them. And this is going to be the content element, so you're going to go for content. Cool, and this is done here. Okay, so now I have created this element, this chat message. It would be nice that it gets registered when before the application launches, because if I create now the element here, it won't exist because it has been defined here on this line here. I can prove it to you. Sorry, I forgot to add one extra line, which is that when you define a new element, like I'm doing here in this chat message, I also have to declare it on the DOM to say, hey, if anybody uses this element, please use this class. So I'm going to say, if something uses the element called chat message, then please use my chat message class, this class here. Okay, and now I can show it to you that if I have this done, if I go here to the DOM and I create here a chat message, I think it was like this, maybe, I don't remember. It was chat message, yes, chat message. I save now and I reload. Maybe that won't work, so let me show you. So if I go here to the DOM, in the DOM there is a main and there's a chat message, and yeah, it works. So you can see that magically it has already 2 elements inside, username and content. Okay, I forgot to put that when you define this, assign the values. So I'm going to say that by default, after creating this, say well, yes, I'm going to use these properties here, these getters and setters. So I'm going to say that you specify the username, then go to the username element here, and the inner text is going to be whatever you, sorry, well, yes, no, wait, yes, I think I can do it like this. So if you get the username, you're going to go to username element and get whatever is inside. And if you request the content, it's going to return also the content element, the inner text. Although here it should be maybe HTML, but anyway. But if you try to set the username, it's going to take this and it's going to assign it to V. Okay? And if you set the content here, also you're going to go here using the user content element, and it's going to equal it to V. Although here it should be a little bit different because when you set the content, maybe there's HTML and should be HTML instead of text. Remember that the difference between using inner text and inner HTML is that inner text is going to treat the string as regular text, and if in the text there's HTML tags, it's not going to compute them as tags, it will compute them as text. But in the inner HTML, it will execute the elements, and that's always risky because if somebody sends a message and that message contains malicious code, it will be executed. So for now, let's leave it like inner text. So now, after we have created the element, I can call this function and say, hey, this username. Oh no, sorry, I forgot to put. I put here this. I'm going to copy like here. Yes. Okay. So now by doing this, automatically it's going to first create the HTML, extract two elements from this HTML, and then when I call this username, is going to call this setter, and the setter is going to assign inner text to V. So if I save now and I reload, if everything goes well, you will see the text is here, okay? And I may even want to make this a little bit more beautiful by having some style here, so you can see like, hey, if you see a chat message element, maybe you want to have a background color, I don't know, a little bit gray, and maybe you have a border radius of 10 pixels and a margin of 4 pixels and a padding of 4 pixels and also a color. For now I will put it black, but also inside the chat message, if inside the chat message you find an element called username, then please make a margin right 10 pixels because we want to separate it, and we want to put the color, I don't know, maybe something more, I don't know, I don't have an idea with this color. This is too bright. 1 second, it won't be visible. Maybe something like this. Yeah. Cool. So if I save now and reload, you should see, oh, maybe, oh, background color is too dark. Yeah, it was silly here. So maybe put something very bright like this. Yes. So let's go again. So you can see, I'm going to put a little bit more margin, margin 4, padding 4, and here maybe, what's the padding so low? Maybe 10 pixels and 10 pixels here, 20 pixels. Okay, so now you can see I have created one single element just by typing here chat message. It's already magically doing what I wanted to, which is construct the content of this element. The only bad thing about doing this approach is that I still see the elements here in the DOM. Okay, so it is a chat message, but the content of this object is already defined by other elements that are inside, which is nice, but it means also that could be confusing because maybe I want to see only this element, not the elements that are inside here. And that's why the other thing that is interesting to see, by the way, remember that now because we have this, it means that if I want to create a new chat message, I can do something like this. My chat, like MS, I can document. There's two ways I can do this: create element chat message. That's way number one, and then obviously document carry selector the main, and here I want to append the child MSG. I can do it like this, and I can show it to you if we reload. There's now two messages, although the second message doesn't have anything inside because children, the result must not have children. File to construct custom element. Interesting. So, okay. I didn't know about this. The thing is, what's happening now is that it's trying to construct this element, but when he creates the element is spawning content, and he doesn't like that. Okay, I just accept that. So let's do this. I'm going to put it like this. Because they say that it's not good to put things on the constructor. So by doing this, it will probably work. You can see it now. So what I'm doing now is, you can see, it's very easy to construct a new message. And just by doing this, you already have all the content inside. So I have the new message with all the content. And it's very easy to modify this code on the future if you want to add more code here. So very kind of condensed inside. Also, instead of constructing like this, if you want it, you can just use the name of the class because it's exactly the same. So you can do something like this. So this will be exactly the same. You can see it works exactly the same. And the nice thing is if I go here and say, by the way, the username is Javi. I reload and you can see how the username changes here. So somehow I already have some kind of, well, not MVC, but at least this message behaves like an object, like a property that I can manipulate the object and it will automatically update the DOM. As you can see, this function here will update the DOM for you. And so very nice, very powerful, very simple to use. And this is something that obviously we'll have a lot to teach you about this when we did the chat, the first assignment. The problem is that there's so many things that you may learn that help you work that it will take a lot of time to explain every one of them. But at least now you have something else that you may want to use on the last assignment. Okay. As I said, one of the problems here is that if anybody here in the document does a query selector span, then it's going to find the first span here, this one here, or if I do a query selector all, you will find that there's 4 spans now on the website. We have these 2 here and 2 here, so there's 4 spans. And maybe you want that the things that define an object internally are not shown outside. So that's why there's this cool feature called the shadow DOM. And the idea of the shadow DOM is that this is like some kind of element that you can put in any element. And if you create this element, from now on, whatever is inside that element is going to be hidden on the DOM. So let's see how it works like. So instead of doing this, like as we were doing before, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to create a shadow. Okay, and this is shadow. You can define if you want it open or close. This is for the editor, I guess. I think I remember. And then this shadow is going to be the root node where we are going to put the things. So inside this shadow, inside this shadow, we are going to start putting elements and searching and blah, blah, blah. And when we search, by the way, we are going to search on the shadow. I'm not sure if this is going to work. Let's see if it works. Maybe it doesn't work because I did something that's a little bit ugly. So it works, okay? So you can see we have exactly the same as before. We have 2 elements, but the cool thing now is first that all the elements have disappeared. As you can see, we cannot see the spans. You can see them if you click here. You can open it. They are here. But nice thing is for anything, we search now for spans. There's no spans. Okay, so what we have done is isolating the content of this shadow DOM with some special properties, and that's very powerful because that means that when you make your own application, you don't have to worry that any of the CSS rules is going to break something. There is only maybe one problem now, which is yeah. There's a difference now. I don't know if you can see it from the previous one. Before we were using this shadow. Before we were using the shadow DOM. Let me show you what's the difference. So let's call it like this root, and we can maybe do this. Sorry, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to create the shadow here, and I'm going to see that the root is the shadow. And just by doing this, then I can go here and do this. And I'm just cleaning the code so you can see the difference, okay? So what I want to show you the difference is this. Is instead of using the shadow, we don't use the shadow DOM, and I'm going to reload now. Okay, what's the problem now? The root is this, so it's going to put it in this element, the HTML, and it's going to search. So why is not liking it now? It is here. That's strange. The elements are here, but because there is a shadow root, it doesn't work. What? Let me see this. Are you sure? Oh, that's strange. Well, okay. I don't know what happened there, but if you create the shadow DOM, then I guess that it breaks something about the children. I guess it's not the same to put it like there, that to put it like here. If I create the shadow DOM now here, it's different. Okay, so when you create a shadow DOM inside an element, I guess the other elements, there's something weird about them. When you look, okay, when it's doing query selector, maybe it's not finding them. But anyway, I don't know what's going on. So for now, I'm going to leave it like it is. But what I want to show you the difference is that you can see here that is I put a margin between these two elements, okay? And you can see it here on the index. I say that if you find the username, I'm going to put here maybe another color like text decoration. No, text wait, bold, I think. No, font weight. Sorry, yes, bold, and the color I want it to be a little bit more easy to spot that this is different. So I'm going to put this other color maybe. Yes. So here, if I reload, I want to show you that this text and this text is different than this text. Maybe if I put it bigger, it will be easy to see it. So 1 second, font size 1.5 AM. Okay, so you can see this word is different color of this word because these two words he has a class username, and the CSS is saying that the username should have a different property here. Okay, but and this is the strange thing is that when I put the things inside the shadow DOM, so I'm going to put everything inside the shadow DOM, and I reload, you will see that the rules are not being applied. So the thing is that when you make a shadow DOM, the content of the DOM don't get affected by the rules that are outside. And that's good and bad, obviously, because then if you have the CSS, which is a huge CSS with all the rules, then you won't be able to apply it to some other elements. But the nice thing is because it's isolating the CSS, that means that you can apply rules specifically to this element that only will apply inside this element. So let me show you how you can do that. 1 second. So style. So the thing is that you can create an element. Let me show it to you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, it's a little bit strange, but anyway. So what I want to do here is I want to say, go to here and say, okay, this rule here, this username, I'm going to remove it from here. And I'm going to put it inside the DOM. So here, when I was creating the shadow DOM here, I'm going to put here that the shadow DOM will have a style, and this style is going to be, let me show you, style, okay, and here we will put this code, okay, and even I can remove the chat message, okay. So I'm saying if inside this element, this DOM, you find a username class, then apply this rule. Okay, I'm going to save it and reload. I hope this works. Yeah, it works, as you can see. And the cool thing is that it's totally isolated the CSS of this element from the rest because it's only applying this rule inside this object. So that means it's very powerful because you can create classes that are very constrained about the representation of them. This class now is the view of an object, okay? It's true that currently the data that we are storing here comes from this username and content. You have to specify it manually from somewhere, like here I'm putting some default data. But the nice thing will be that I can, from the outside, by the way, I didn't say it, but the cool thing about this is that I apply this rule username, and if I create here in the HTML another, I don't know, div, call it class username, and put here something like foo, and I reload, you cannot see it because it's right behind there. But what I want to show you is that this foo is not being applied the same rule. Let me show you, maybe class username foo. Yeah, I'm going to put here something ugly so you can see it. No, anyway, it's there, the foo. The thing is because we are adding one later, it's adding it on top of the previous one. But anyway, what I wanted to show you is that this foo doesn't have the rule applied on top of it, even though this username has a class, this div has a class username, and if we go to the DOM, we can see that we are applying this to any object that has the class. But the nice thing is that the style elements that you apply inside the shadow only apply to the shadow, not outside, okay? So as I said, we have constructed a way to visualize any message on the web, and then it's up to us if in any moment we construct messages like, I don't know, we make our own chat as we did previously. We have, sorry, put username, contact. you have very easy way to construct. By the way, why is this element? Oh, sorry. I don't want this. I inherited from HTML element because, well, it's the generic HTML element. But I wanted my chat message to be a div. If you want them to be a div, you can do this. Like you can say, use the div element. I think it's called the div element. 1 second. HTML div. Yes, this div element. So if I inherit from the div element, that means it will be a div element. That will mean that this text will be one below the other, I guess. No, okay, but you cannot do that. I thought you could do it. Anyway, so what I can do here is say that by default to the anyway, the thing is, I want this element now, this chat message that is going to be a div, like it's going to break line. I want to CSS it, but I don't know if I can do it from here. Let's try to see if it works from here. I don't think it will work to say that display block. Display block is when you want an object to break the line when it on the object. Yeah, it's not being applied, the rule, because this is not. So if I put this rule, for instance, outside in the index HTML here, so, oh yes, already we have here some rules. So here I can apply it also here. So I can put it here, and then it will break the line as we were doing with the chat before. But I wanted that you could do this part of the CSS inside the object. But to be fair, I don't remember how to do that. There has to be a way, but I don't remember now. Anyway, so easy to construct now objects. The thing is that the data currently we are not passing any data here. So it would be nice that you can pass some data, and when you or the object could store some container of data. So if you modify the data, it's going to go to that data. So instead of using this username and content, I'm going to leave it because it could be useful. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have another variable, call it data. Okay, that for now is going to be model. Let's call it model because I think it's more clear, and it's going to be null for now. But I want to have a function here, call it refresh. And what this function is going to do is going to say that the username is equal to this model username, and the content is going to be model content. Okay, so in any moment you can assign a model, and then you can ask refresh in any moment, and it will refresh it. Obviously, if there is no model, then don't do anything because there's nothing to do. Okay, so what I do now is that imagine I have something like this. So currently this works well, but my data is chat messages on this maybe view. Okay, and maybe in my real system I'm going to remove maybe a little bit of this code. In my real world I will have something more like this: messages, an array, and in this array I may have some messages here like username Javi, content hello. Okay, and I'm going to add a couple of more messages. Fu, how are you? Fine, bye. So now I have 4 messages, but they are of my own type. This is a data type that could come from the database, could come from anywhere. So the problem is with this approach is that it would be nice that when I have some data, I can construct easily a representation of this data on the web that I can manipulate very easily. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, hey, I want to construct for of messages. Okay, I want to say, hey, can you create an element? So I'm going to say element equal new chat message, and I'm going to say to this element that I wanted to add it to the DOM. So document query selector main append child element. And once this is added, I'm going to say, hey element, can you, as a model, I want to use this message, and now I want to refresh. Okay, so if I reload now, you can see I have my chat here with all the messages I had in my database, because I created a chat message for every one of them and constructed a view of that data, but I'm keeping the data. So the data is still here in messages. Okay, if I go to messages here, fuck, I forgot to put here because this is type model. Sorry, I have to remove this, otherwise it won't export the variables. So you can see that the messages are here, okay? And the nice thing is that if I modify the data of any of these elements, I can do it here. If I go to messages, to message number 0, and I say that the username is going to be blah, 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 I have modified the data, but the problem is that it's not modifying this here. I was expecting that it will modify this one because this is the element that is this data is assigned. But the problem is that we never call refresh, because we never call refresh. Even if you modify this data, we need to go to this element, find this element on the DOM, and then call refresh. I'm going to do it here, as you can see it. So I can go here and say query selector, and from these chat messages, I'm going to find the first one, which is this one, and then I'm going to say refresh. And if I do this, and everything will well, it didn't modify the, one second, messages, which one I modify? Username of blah, 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 it says hello, and it didn't modify it. Why not? That's strange. Let me see, one second. I'm going to put a breakpoint on the refresh because maybe it's not assigning the right one. So here, one second. So if I go here and click refresh on this element, and this has a model? No, it doesn't have a model. Model is null. Okay, that's strange. One second. I created the element, assigned the model, and by some reason the model is null. It looks like maybe it was cloned or something. That doesn't make sense. One second, just to be sure, when I created this code. One second. So we are iterating here. So I have this element, which is here, and I assign a model. Oh, because model is a reserved, yeah. I cannot use the word model, I think, because that's a reserved element in JavaScript, probably. So, like, let me show you. Document body model. No, it is not. I was expecting that it was going to tell me that I cannot. And this refresh, it just. So if I go here again and I go inside, it's going to modify the model, this username and content, which is nice. And I guess model still exists. So if you return back, element model is still the data. So it looks nice, but for some reason, when it finishes executing this code, if I fetch these elements, I'm going to click selector all, one second. I have all the elements. Oh, it was another one. I'm silly. Sorry, I was getting this one, and this one doesn't have a model. I had to take the first one. This is the one that has a model, not the other one. This one doesn't have any model. Okay, sorry. So, so yes, I was doing here. I should have put here query selector all. Go to the first, number one, not number 0, and refresh it. And if I do this now, well, it won't change because I didn't change the data. But if I go back to the messages and change the data, so the username is blah blah blah. And if I do this now, you will see that now it has blah blah blah. So cool. It refreshed data, so it was kind of nice. But still, I had to go through the elements manually to find them. So maybe I can have something that to say, hey, modify, update all the elements that has this property. So maybe I can have function here, says refresh all. Okay, so what this function is going to do, okay, is going to search nodes on my DOM, query selector, all the elements that follow some rule, like a rule that could be, for instance, that this it's a special element I created that could be updated. For now, I could put here if I wanted to chat message, because that would work. It would all the elements chat message here. So let's do it like this. So I'm going to go with lm of list and then say lm refresh. So if I modify in any moment my data, so I can show it to you, I have here these messages. If I go to my message and I modify the blah, 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 I can say refresh all. And by doing so, it will just refresh this element. So it's nice. The only problem is it only works with chat messages. It would be nice that it worked with any other elements I do in the future, not only chat messages, although here it would be nice to have this. So what you can do is different things. Maybe you can put here tag name. So when you do this function, it's going to search for the tag name, and so you can refresh very easily. But it would be nice also that maybe you can specify even a root. So if you specify a root, it will use the root. Otherwise, it will use document, all the elements in the document. So at least you can filter now. If you want to refresh, if you don't specify any tag name, it's going to take all the elements on the DOM, which is bad. So I'm going to do something to make it a little bit more custom, which is going to be saying, instead of searching for all the elements on the DOM, which are too much, I'm going to say, hey, why don't you just set an attribute here, call it, I don't know, my MVC, okay, nothing else. I'm going to set this attribute, okay? You don't have to specify any value here. You don't want to, although you can put an empty string if you wanted to. This is going to add this property to this element, and you can see it here. If I reload now, you will see that this element here, now it has a property called my MVC, okay? So it has at least one property that makes this element different from all the elements on my DOM. And the nice thing now is, because I do that, I can go here. By the way, I'm going to remove these two lines because I don't like that it's putting, if there is no model, it shouldn't render anything. And so you can see here, it doesn't have model, you don't see anything. Cool. So what I wanted to say is, now I can say if you don't specify any tag name, okay, so tag name has to be tag name, but if you don't specify it, the query selector is going to be any element that has my MVC, okay? So by doing this means any element who has an attribute, when you put the brackets, is an attribute, and the attribute is my MVC. And by doing so, that means that you're going to search all the DOM, and only the elements that has this property are going to be searched. If you don't want to search all of them, you can filter by other ways. So anyway, now it's very easy. If I modify my chat, okay, refresh, so I go here and modify this message and maybe this other message too, and I do a refresh, you will see that they modify. And if I wanted to go more fine-tuned, I could do it. And this is not slow. How many times should be modifying or calling this refresh? Depends. I can do it every frame, but it's a bad idea. I could do it like only when I detect some changes in my code. It depends on how you want to work. But at least it's nice that now we have a way to update. And the only thing missing here now is that the current, we are updating these containers individually for every message, but the whole container that contains all the chat messages is not being updated. So that means if I go to messages and I push a new element here, like username foo and content fam. Okay, so now we have a problem, which is that we have more messages, but they are not being displayed here. Okay, so if we wanted, we could do the bad thing, which is putting all this content here as I was doing before. This function I did here, let's call it update messages. Okay, so imagine we can do this. This is a little bit ugly, but we can do it. So here you may specify some content, some root element, sorry, and some data messages, okay? And what it's going to do is going to go to this root element, okay? And is going to first, it's going to clear the element, so it's going to say inner HTML equals, text equals this is how I clear all the content of an element. There's other ways to do it, but I like it this way. So in any moment, if you want to update all the messages, you will go and say, hey, update messages, and you will pass this and the container. I'm going to put different names so you can have here like messages, something like this. So it's easy to remember that this is a different object. So it's going to go here and say, okay, take all the messages, and you're going to destroy all the content of this element and replace it by the list of messages. So for now, if I want to, I can go here. I have my elements here. You can see it has killed the title because the title was inside also the container. It's okay for now. So if I go here and to my messages and I create a new messages, like I'm going to create, I'm going to create a couple of messages more on the content. They are not appearing here unless obviously I say update messages, and then I'm going to say here the container. By the way, I always like that if you have to specify a container, and if root is equal to, if root constructor is equal to string, this means that I'm passing a string, then means it's a selector. So then do the query document query selector and search for that element. Okay, so this makes this function work in two ways. Or you can pass the element itself, where you want to put all the content inside, or you may pass a string and it will just do the query selector for you, so you don't have to do it. So it's easy because instead of doing this, which I think is a little bit ugly, I like to do this here. So what I'm saying here is, hey, go to this element and put all these messages inside this element. If I can reload now, I can reload, and if I say before, if I go here and add more messages, and I clear this one, and I say update messages, I want to update it on main, and the messages is called messages. And by doing so, boom, I have all the elements. There's some bad things about this. First is I have destroyed and constructed the elements again, even though I mean it's fast, you can do it, but it's if you have 100 messages and you destroy and construct very often, the DOM, like it doesn't help the DOM. So it's not the best solution. The best solution would be, and I've seen some engines doing this, which is okay, you can do something like this, for instance. It's a little bit complicated, but yes, we can try it. Just as a way to show you that if you're clean, you can do very cool things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go I'm going to remove any element inside this DOM, because otherwise it's going to break it. So yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find if there is already an element here. So go to the child nodes, okay, and take the element, the index. So let's start with index. Let's put here a regular if. So 0 equal messages length. Okay, so I'm going to say that the message is messages e. And also, I'm going to check what I'm doing. I'm going to go to the root, check the children that it has, and get the element here, okay? Pref element, okay. So I'm going to search for the element that is in the same position as this message on the children of the list, okay? So once I have this element, I'm going to check if this element model is equal to the message, okay? If that's the case, it means it's exactly the same. Then what I'm going to do is you don't need to assign anything. You just refresh, because it's already the proper element, and then continue. And the thing, otherwise, if it's not the element I was expecting to, I'm going to create a new element and put it in the DOM, okay? This has a problem, which is that if you already have some elements and then you remove some elements from the messages list, when it's going to come here, he won't realize that that element is missing. So maybe you can do another thing is search if this element that I'm finding here, it's a little ugly, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to say, can you search if there is any message in the messages list? Can you find, I don't know, find index of, can you see if there is, the model is in is equal to -1. So what it means is going to go to the list of messages and search if this element, there's any element on the messages that has the same model as this element I have now, this prep element. If none of them has it, this means that this element has to die, so I'm going to destroy it. And otherwise, I will leave it there. Okay, so at least it will keep searching for the elements. It's not perfect. I mean, I see some errors is going to happen when you remove things from the list and stuff like that. But let's see how it works. I don't know if it will work or not. So first iteration, it didn't work because of the messages model. Okay, pref element model, but oh, because this was null. So if this and this, if there was an element, because I wasn't checking out what happens if there's no element inside. So if, 1 second, I'm going to control that case here too. So what I'm saying is search for a node, for this node. If there is a node, check if this node already uses the same model. So if the model is exactly the same, don't do anything, just update it, refresh it, and keep going. But if it's not the same, then check if there is another any other message that uses this model, uses some message that already exists. And if it doesn't exist, that means that this should be gone, and I remove it. And then I create one for him. Okay. Okay. This is a little bit better. Still, I feel that there is one case that I'm not taking into account, but it's okay. Let's load and see what happens. So I have the messages here. I can modify the messages as I was doing before, like adding a couple of messages here. And if I update, boom, they appear. But the cool thing is if I go and call this function again, let me show you something. If I go to this message here, okay, and imagine I do something, I don't know, crazy, like added here some background, I don't know, background color red, okay. So I modify the CSS of this element, and you can see if I call this function again, if I'm doing everything right, that shouldn't change. Okay, it didn't change. That's nice because it reused the same element. So it's not destroying the element, it's reusing the same one. So this is way faster than the one previously done because we are not deleting and creating elements every time, only in the case I remove one message. Let's try to see that. If, for instance, I go to my messages and I remove the number 1, okay, so this is going to remove this foo, how are you? I remove it, obviously this is still on the DOM, but if I refresh this, this is going to remove that message. Although, yeah, okay. I don't know if it worked or not. Anyway, there's something missing here. If I remove one element, it's not going to remove the last one because it removes the previous one, but keeps adding. Well, this function is a little bit ugly. I should do it way better, like controlling all the cases, that if you remove elements, detect that all the DOM has to be changed, something like that. But for now, it's just, you can do something like this if you wanted to, like have here like a function that says force delete or something like this. So you say if force delete, then root inner HTML equals to nothing, inner text. So by doing so, I'm saying something like in the line of, hey, if by any reason you know that you're removing elements, force a reload, okay? Because you can see if I do this, as I was doing before, if I modify, I remove one of the messages, I'm removing this one, the foo, how are you, okay? So if I do this and I refresh, you will see that the foo, how are you is gone, but there's another one below here, and that's because the order was messed up a little bit. So yeah, because when you remove an element and you search the element, the index is wrong. Let me do something. I can fix it here, but I don't want to do it now. I should, because when I search this one, the I position, if I have added elements or removed previously, then I should realize that the index has changed and updated index properly, but I'm not doing that. So if any moment I have the, this is not working, I put true here, and boom, it's going to remove all the elements that are, this is lower, but at least it's going to work, okay? The nice thing about using the Shadow DOM and this kind of approaches is that you could construct a new element. I didn't do it here. So we have here this element called chat message, but nothing stops us from doing something here like a new class called chat list. Okay, extend HTML element. HTML element. Okay, so I can keep going and constructing a new element, chat list, that is going to be a new object that is going to encapsulate the list of messages. So when you update, this is going to be the one who does all these update messages, blah, blah, blah. So here, this will have a container, constructor. Sorry, I'm going to copy the constructor from here. So you can do something like this. And this will have also a model which will be the list of messages. Okay, that means that here, if you have a function update messages or something like that, or refresh all, yes, I'm going to go with this one. So you can have something like here, call it refresh, and this function, you don't need to specify the root because the root is going to be this one. So root equals this, and you don't need to specify the messages because the messages is going to be bar messages is going to be this model. Okay, so now I think more or less the same. Yes, I think so. So the nice thing I have created here is that if you want to have a chat list now, you can create a chat list very easily from like this, and instead of having to, I'm going to keep this update message. No, sorry, this is the update message. I don't need this one. Okay, but what I wanted to say is that you can now create a chat list. So instead of creating, I'm going to create here like chat list, new chat list. Okay, it was like this, call it chat list. Yes, and then I'm going to go to document, query selector, main, and I'm going to append the chat list. Okay, and this chat list, by the way, is going to have a method called a model, and the model is going to be the messages. Okay, so now if in any moment I call refresh all, it will call this, if it has this MVC, it's going to call the refresh inside. Okay, so let's see if it works. Reload. So it didn't work because chat list is not defined. Sorry, chat list here, new chat list. Sorry, I put the yes, I put an uppercase. Okay, and update messages, is that true? Update messages, where I call this update messages? Sorry, it's refresh. It's going to be true. Sorry, I forgot to put here that only no force delete, because if you force delete it, I don't want to search for the previous element. Okay, so if I reload now, okay, I have my elements here, and you can see my DOM is still interesting. I have my chat list, and the chat list has messages inside. So now it's easier if I go to my messages and modify my messages. I can always try to do the update. How was the refresh all? Refresh all. And by doing this, it's going to update. Although I'm going to force now that this refresh always going to be true, because for now I don't want that to use the previous one. So as I said, you can go to the messages now and add some messages here. Sorry, here I'm going to add messages, and now if in any moment I want to refresh all, I get this and the message will appear. Okay, there's always room for improving this a lot, and that's why libraries like React and Angular and Vue, they always use these tricks to empower people to do more crazy things. The last thing maybe it's interesting to show you is that maybe, let me see if I can do it this. Okay, I'm going to try to do something, another thing that is interesting, which is, remember that on the Angular and all those things, there was another cool feature, which was, imagine that you can create an element, like, I don't know, let me see, yes. I'm going to create here title, okay, so you put here, this is the title appears here, but it will be nice that this is a variable I can modify very easily. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark this variable, my MVC, and I'm going to say that there's a bar name, call it, I don't know, title. Okay, so the variable, there's an attribute in this object called title, okay? And if I load, it will say hello chat, nothing fancy here, but it will be nice that I have here an object let's imagine I have my own object, call it my MVC, and here I have some variables, and one of the variables could be tile, would be happy. So it would be nice that if I modify this variable, it would modify it on the DOM. So I'm going to do the same here. I did refresh all before, which is I'm going to search for any element that has this my MVC, and if the element has a refresh, then I will recall refresh, because remember that now I'm putting this property on this h1. H1 doesn't have a refresh, so if you call it refresh, it will crash because it will say, hey, this h1 doesn't have a refresh method. It's okay, but I'm going to say if the element has an attribute called var name, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, go to my MVC, search for that var name. Oh, I can put var name here so you can see it better. So this is going to return the var name on the objects. In this case was title. So go to this element, search if there's a variable with this, and if you find this variable, if this is different than null, so there is a variable with the same name, then take this element and the inner content text is going to be equal to the variable. So check what I'm doing. If in any moment in your DOM he finds var name and he sees that there is a var defined in my object that has the same name, then I'm going to take the value of that variable and put it in the content of this element. So by doing so, if I reload now, you will see I have my hello chat, but if I go to my MVC title, which is Javi, now if I do the refresh all, you will see how it changed to Javi. And if I go here and put hello all, then I can go refresh it and it would change. So it's very easy for me when I construct in my DOM to just inject these tricks to say, hey, by the way, this variable is this one. Some engines even support that you use some sort of namespaces. So you can say something like here, instead of title, you can say, I don't know, my data.title, stuff like that. That's a little bit more complicated because then you have to parse this my data.title and then search an element called my data, and inside that my data search for an element called title, which I can do here if you want to, so you can see it. Imagine I have here my data, and my data contains inside something called title. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for that var name, and to do that I can go here, var name, and say split it. Well, first, yes, var name split it in using the dot as a separator. So tokens equals this. So then I'm going to do a for, but equals 0 is smaller than tokens length. What I'm going to say is, let's start here, like current is going to be my MVC. Then what I'm going to do is on the current, search for the tokens of I. If there is in the current tokens of I is different of null, there's two possibilities. That this is the last element, so that's that E is equal, if I is equal to tokens length, this is the last token that on the list, sorry, -1, then yes, go here and put here the current tokens there. Otherwise, it means there's still more tokens, then current is going to be this one. Okay, so sorry if you don't understand. And what I'm trying to do now is that if you have several data here, like for instance, I have here users, and here on users I have Javi, and here Javi has something like age 100. Okay, something like this. Now my system can go, when I find this string, my data title, okay, so my data is here, is going to split this string, my data title, in two tokens, my data and title. Then it's going to first start searching if the first token, my data, is inside of current is my MVC. If it exists, then it's going to say, okay, I'm on the last one. If it's the last one, then change it with the value. Otherwise, keep going, updating the current with the inner thing. And just by doing so, I don't know if it looks interesting. I can refresh it. It's going to say Javi. But if I change this variable and see my data, I say users Javi age, and it reload here, is going to say 100. Okay, so I mean, you can always extend this with cool features that you can search variables and stuff like that. But the nice thing is that currently this is using some global container of data, but even you can specify like local containers. So this object will search for the local container of data in the upper element or something like that. And by separating that, you can start doing more interesting things, because when you construct the XML, you can specify what goes in every place. Okay, so that's more or less what all the cool engines are doing. As you can see, you can do it by yourself. You don't need React, or you don't need all those fancy words like Angular, Vue, Svelte. But obviously, if you are going to go to work on a company, they're going to also tell you, hey, we use React, so it would be nice that you use it. So I recommend you that you try to learn a little bit of those libraries, just the basic things. You can see the inners are simple. It's just a bunch of rules that go. Also, don't abuse those libraries, because as I showed you before, they tend to use a lot of things in the DOM, modifying the DOM constantly. React is famous to be fast, because they try to detect if something has changed or not, as we were doing with the list, and that's always nice. And that's another thing about working with this kind of approach, is that when you check the DOM, it looks much more beautiful. Like, check my DOM now. It has a chat list, and you can open it, and it has chat messages. And it's way better, this approach, than having here div and div and span and div and span, because it's hard to read. Even here, I did some hacks, because the content, this content, you cannot see it outside, but some people also put the content here as an attribute. I can show it to you so you can see it better. So usually what some people do is they define the attributes on these elements. So for instance, like username and the attribute content. And although this one is bad, because content could be a very long string, and attributes are supposed. I'm going to only go with the username, because I think that content is too much. And now every time you modify the username, like where we're modifying the username, when we do the refresh here, you can also do here like this set. Well, what I have here, set attribute username, this model username. Okay, so this doesn't change too much. So the only thing I've done is that now when you check the DOM, it's a little bit more beautiful, because you can see every message who did it. Okay, so that's nice, because it's nice to see the DOM, how it looks like. The only thing bad now is if I modify this and put here blah blah blah, it does not modify in the model on any way. You can do that. You can detect. There's a way to detect if there's any modification on the attributes, and if there's any modification, you can like bind an event and then trigger that event and go to the model and modify it. So at least if somebody's manipulating the DOM, you can at least check it and see that it's happening. But I don't know. I mean, this is something that maybe could be interesting if you are more into, I don't know, making the code super clean. Anyway, that's it for today. I think that this is the last thing. Now you have, next week you have exams, so you still have this week, next week, and at the end of the other week is going to be the presentation. Remember, the presentation will be in class, so everybody could see your work. And I keep saying, what I expect from you is that you do something that you feel proud, that you feel that it has all the concepts that we have explained, and you make a code that it looks clean, and you try to refactor the code in a way that you feel well, it would work if you had to expand it a lot. Okay, so don't go very rushing the features, trying to put bad code. Try to make good code, and you will see how the things always end up in the right place. And that's it. Thank you for everybody who came today, and we will see after exams. So enjoy these 3 weeks, and if you have any doubts, remember, you can always send me emails. Cool. Okay, bye.